I will take you out. I'll take you out of Egypt. I will save you from labor and bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments, and I will take you to be my people. And as the Seder goes on, when we look at these things, we will have 4 different cups of wine at each of the points where we're remembering these 4 promises that God says he will do. I will take you out, I will save you, I will redeem you, and I will take you to be my people. And why is he going to do those things? Because, and you will know that I am God. He is doing these things so that his people will know who God is, who he is. He says, I will bring you into the land that I promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And these are the things you are to tell the people living in the land of Egypt. And Moses goes and says those things, and nobody listens because they're having a really hard time. And if you're having a really, really hard time, it's difficult to listen to someone trying to bring you a good message that says, I'm going to get you out of here, if you're really, really oppressed. And everyone here is in hard labor and bondage, and they're too busy building bricks all day, and so they really don't have time to listen to this Moses guy who says he's going to take them out. They don't believe him. God tells Moses to go to Pharaoh, and you're going to tell Pharaoh I'm going to take my people out of Egypt. And Moses, of course, responds by saying, well, if the Israelites didn't listen to me, why would Pharaoh? I can't talk to Pharaoh. We go back to an excuse he's made before. My mouth is slow. I can't talk to Pharaoh. Send somebody else. Aaron will talk for you, but you will go to Pharaoh. I will tell you what to say, and Aaron will say it to Pharaoh for you. We have a brief detour real quick in the middle of all of this other story where we're going to see some of the genealogy of Moses and Aaron, where they came down the line from the tribe of Levi. We also see a little bit other genealogy of who are some of the Israelites living in Egypt at this time. Some of the sons of the 12, and some of the sons of the 12 sons. After this brief detour of genealogy, we do see Moses talk to Pharaoh, and this is where we see the beginnings of the 10 plagues. We'll only see 8 in this parsha, and we'll see the remaining 2 in the next one. We break right after the plague of hail. I'm going to give a very, very abbreviated version of a Devar Torah that the late Rabbi Berg used to give on this parsha. And there is much more to expound on this idea to be found if you want to look into it yourself. But do be careful, because lots of people want to put this teaching in their blog, and there's often misinformation or something typed wrong. But the teaching is that it's very important that God sent specifically the plagues that he did. And we count 10 of them, and there's much rabbinic debate about, is it actually 10, or is it 50, or is it 60, or is it 150 or 250? Because each plague is referred to as, we see the finger of God in this plague. But he also says, I will do these things with an outstretched hand, but a hand has 5 fingers. So if there's 10 plagues but 5 fingers, that's 50 plagues. So there must have been 50 plagues in Egypt. There is a great rabbinic debate on this point, which also is illuminated in the Haggadah. So at Passover time, if you want to find a traditional Haggadah and read about rabbis arguing over math, there is a passage for that. From the 10 plagues that are actually listed for us, regardless of all this extra math we don't want to put on top of it, it's important that he sent these 10. Because these 10 are each individually a direct refutation of the gods of Egypt, specifically. Specific gods, not just in general. The first plague, where the water of the Nile turns into blood, refutes the guardian of the river, Khnum, and Osiris, whose blood supposedly is the river. So these people are not God, because it's not his blood in the river. God put the blood there. The plague of frogs is refuting Hapi, whose court of the Nile there are many frogs in, and Heket, who is often represented as a frog. And these are, again, gods of the Nile and gods of fertility, but they're not God either. The river isn't a god, I am God, and the frogs are not God, I am. The third plague of lice is usually referred to as a refutation of Seb, who's the earth god, because Aaron strikes the dirt with his staff, and he hits the earth, and even the earth turns into lice at the command of God. So the earth isn't God either. God is God. The fourth plague of flies refutes the Egyptian god of flies, Uatkit. The fifth plague, the disease on cattle, is refuting Ptah, who is the god of animals, Hathor, who is the god of cows, and other Egyptian gods associated with bulls and rams and livestock and cows. The sixth plague of boils is refuting Sekhmet, who's a goddess of healing, and Imhotep, who was an ancient pharaoh but later becomes turned into a god and who's the god of medicine, one of the symbols of modern modern medicine, which is the staff is derivative of a thing that used to be a symbol of Imhotep. These people are not gods either, because their healing and their medicine cannot take back the boils that I sent out to you. The seventh plague, which is hail mixed with fire, is refuting Nut, the sky goddess, Isis and Seth, who are gods of atmosphere and storms, and Shu, who is also the god of atmosphere and the sky and the air. And these are not God either, because I have control over the sky. And the eighth plague, the swarm of locusts, is refuting Serapia, who is supposedly a god that protects Egypt from locusts. But she can't protect you from my locusts, because she's not God either. I am God. The Parsha ends right here. And in the next one, we'll see the final two plagues, darkness, which is going to refute Ra, the god of the sun, and Horus, who's associated with the sun, and Aten and Atum, and a number of other sun gods. And we will see the 10th plague, which is going to refute the godhood of Pharaoh himself, because even Pharaoh is not untouchable by the real God. So all of these things, we sent 10 specific plagues, not just random things. God did not send random things into Egypt. He sent specific things, each of which is a commentary on all the things the Egyptians worshipped as gods, to say that those things are not God. And why does he do this? Well, he said earlier in the Parsha, I'm going to do this and my people will know who God is. But it also says that I'm going to do this so that the Egyptians know who I am. Because there's a time during all these plagues when people are suffering and covered in boils and their heads are full of lice and all the cattle are running amok in the streets and it's dark and there's hail coming down. More than one time, it seems like Pharaoh's about to change his mind. Earlier in the plagues, every time there's a plague, it says Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Pharaoh hardened his own heart and refused to let the Egyptians go. As time goes on, there's a couple of spaces where it actually tells us in between the plagues that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh might have changed his mind, but God made sure it wasn't time yet. You can't change your mind yet. I need to get through my list. So why would God send these specific plagues and make sure that they're all there and make sure Pharaoh does not let the people go until it is the right time? Because the Egyptians need to see who God is, that it's not the frogs and the lice and the river and the sun and the sky. These things are not God. I am God. And he needs to make sure that not only am I going to bring out the Israelites so that they can know who I am, that I also need to bring out the Egyptians. And they need to see some things to know who God is, who I am. So if it would appear that you're praying for God to deliver you out of something that kind of sucks, and it seems like he sent plagues instead, you asked for deliverance and there's instead plagues, it may be that God is using your story in order to show somebody else who he is. It may not be about you. He may be trying to bring some Egyptians with you when he takes you out.